Is everyone supposed to mute?
Yes, please.
Well, actually, that was going to be one of our things. If you're going to laugh, please unmute. If you're going to like be talking to your dog, mute.
Any booing or hissing, Ginger needs to hear the booing and hissing. I
Bob
don't, but
needs
she
to hear the
does.
laughter. Okay, so we'll get started. So thank you all for attending. It's nice to see so many people here. So Bob and I have put together a presentation that we hope you'll enjoy. As you see, we have this bar in the shower, but we misunderstood what the doctor meant when he said to put a shower bar in. Okay, so on our agenda, I learned early on in my career that it's when you're giving a presentation, you should tell the people what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then at the end, you tell them what you told them. And if they didn't get it by then, well, they can listen to the recording, I guess. So what we're going to tell you today is we're going to talk about what is actually humor. We're going to tell you about 8 different types of humor and we're going to give you examples of each of those. Then we're going to have an interactive session where you'll be able to participate. We'll share with you some of our favorite humor authors. And then for all of you who want to try your hand at writing humor, we'll give you a list of where you can submit your pieces. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you want to it's probably best to hold your questions until the end. Okay. So what is humor? Well, obviously it's something that makes us laugh. However, we've probably all seen, if we've not done it ourselves, examples of where you might have said something funny and it actually wasn't funny for anyone else. It can be specific to things like an age group, like seniors, but of course you don't want young people joking about seniors. You want seniors joking about seniors. Could be a nationality, which is very tricky because, for instance, there used to be, when I was growing up, a lot of jokes about Polish people, and that's no longer acceptable. Could be a profession. I'm sure we all know lawyer jokes. Might be regional or tied to a certain political persuasion, which can be very tricky, or marital status, divorce, mothers-in-law, things like that. Okay.
So notice the guy on the right here slipping on the banana peel, right? That's the age-old joke. So is this funnier? Okay. We got a banana slipping on a guy, right? Is it funnier? Why or why not? My argument was it is funnier because it's different. It's unexpected. We've all heard about the guy slipping on the banana peel, but this is 180 degrees different. So humor very often needs to be the opposite from normal conventions. So we're going to tell you about 8 types of humor, as Ginger told you. Now, I did extensive research on this 8 types of humor. I went to an eHarmony dating site, and I got these 8 types of humor from eHarmony. So, because, you know, dating is the basis of all humor nowadays. So there are 8 types. So you have your physical humor, which includes slapstick and farce. Now, remember, we're talking about writing humor, okay? There may be other kinds of humor, but we're talking about writing humor here. So physical humor, it has to be that the reader can picture, okay? We have self-deprecating humor, where you make the author or the narrator or a character the butt of the joke and the ongoing joke through the story. You have surreal humor, which is where the story is totally illogical. It's absurd. It just doesn't make sense, or it's just silly and fun, okay? We have observational humor, which is where you find humor in everyday situations, and you're allowed to make gross exaggeration to make your point. And we're going to have examples of all this. Topical humor is based on current events and trends, and very often includes forms of satire. Bodily humor is humor derived from bodily functions or characteristics, and I promise you, we have one slide on that, and that's all. Dark humor is making fun or light of dark or depressing themes. And then you have wit and wordplay, which is humor through the word selections, includes puns and double entendres, And of course, because we're white writers and because I got to do this presentation, we're going to spend a fair amount of time on that because that's my favorite. So let's dive right in with slapstick, physical, or farcical humor, okay? And again, we're talking about writing it, not doing it, or writing it, but we're still, slapstick humor is a viable writing methodology. And slapstick humor involves exaggerated physical activity that exceeds the boundaries of normal physical actions. So I would say that banana peel tripping on the guy, that is slapstick, okay? And slapstick may involve both intentional violence and violence by mishap, okay? Often resulting from the inept use of props. Okay? And those props can include saws, ladders, anvils, and cannonballs if you're writing about coyotes, plus guns, autos, rocks, and riots for some authors. So that led me to the question, if it hurts, is it funny? And I'm thinking I'm going to share some with you, and you have to decide if you think they're funny. I actually think this guy is one of the funniest writers in the world today.
Yeah.
His name is Tom Sharp. Does anyone know Tom Sharp? Heather, look at Heather, thumbs up. She knows Tom Sharp, okay? First of all, his covers summarize his plots. So even if you don't read a word of it, his covers are hilarious because you get the whole plot in one cover. And he's very sarcastic. He is so sarcastic that he got deported from South Africa. In my book, anyone who can manage to get deported from South Africa during apartheid was probably doing something right. So let me share an example of Tom Sharp with you, and you have to decide. I mean, I'm going to share an example from Riotous Assembly. So briefly, we have an English flag in South Africa, a South African policeman or two. We have a guy hanging from a bedspread in latex. We have an old lady shooting a poor black man with a 4-barrel elephant gun, okay? We have a lot of smoke coming out of the policeman's gun, all right? So what are we talking about here? So here is a, and I've got to minimize you guys' photos so I can read this, but basically, this is from Riotous Assembly, 1987. This was his first book, in which old Miss Hazelton of Jacaranda Park, a historical pro-British South African family, kills her lover and cook, Fivepence, a middle-aged black man with a gigantic elephant gun after a lovemaking session dressed in latex, all of which she readily confesses. Mayhem ensues. So this is an actual section from the story. For a moment, the commandant drew fresh hope that Fivepence's sudden death must have been the result of not any human agency, but some natural cataclysm in the order of a freak tornado that had passed through without a shadow of doubt, well noticed by Jacaranda Park, but unremarkable in the rest of Piemsburg. That brief spasm of optimism died almost as soon as it was born. It was all too obvious that whatever gifts Miss Hazelton had inherited from her illustrious imperial forebears, Sir Theophilus had left her with a marked propensity for enormous firearms and their use at unnecessarily close range. Okay, you can picture all that. I mean, you can picture basically the cover that we just saw. So this is slapstick. I mean, is it realistic? No, but it's hilarious. And I don't know how Heather feels, but whenever I read Tom Sharp, and I probably read all of his early books at least a dozen times, I laugh out loud. There are not many books that can make me laugh out loud. Now, farce is different from slapstick. Farce features unlikely scenarios, locations, and relationships. It's an emphasis on buffoonery and horseplay. It has crude characterizations. The people in farces are not like the people you would expect to see in real life, okay? They are overly dramatic. The policemen are bumbling. French maids are popping out of their outfits. This mistress is a sex crazed, and then you put them in an improbable situation, such as trapping all those people in a reputable man's bedroom, such as the judge, which is a farce called Tartuffe. Anyhow, so the one I want to focus on is Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors, which was the shortest and most farcical of Shakespeare's early plays. It's slapstick, but with plenty of puns and wordplay to create humor. It is just takes place over 24 hours, and it's so well known that Comedy of Errors now has a meaning of synonymous for ridiculous events that go wrong, that go wrong. In the play, basically, two sets of identical twins are separated at birth. Later, as adults, they both wind up in the same town, and then people mistake them for each other. And so it gets very crazy. And a great line from Comedy of Errors is, if everyone knows us and we know none, 'tis time, I think, to trudge, pack, and be gone. Which brings us to self-deprecating humor and Ginger.
Yes, so this is one of my favorites. So belittling one's own self or the protagonist in a story for humorous effect. I once wrote a story about going to the gym, and the instructor in the exercise class said that everybody should wear something loose fitting and comfortable. And I said, well, if I had something loose fitting and comfortable, I wouldn't be here. So it can also involve age, intelligence, appearance, personality, relationships with others. And Bob's going to talk a little bit about Portnoy's complaint as an example, right?
No, Bob isn't, because because this is a G-rated show.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically, I think we're all familiar with Portnoy's complaint. And Portnoy is the protagonist, and he's an adolescent, and he's very self-centered, but he is everything you would not want a human being to be, basically. So that's self-deprecating humor, which brings us to surreal humor, also known as absurdist humor, and where events and behaviors are illogical. And there are bizarre juxtapositions, incongruity. I mean, things that can't happen in real life happen in surreal humor. There are constants, non sequiturs. They are irrational and absurd. And Lewis Carroll and Edward Lear are well-known examples of the start of surreal humor, in my opinion. Surreal humor requires a straight man, and that is something that, as a writer, you need to know. You need that straight man reacting to the absurdities. Let me give you a great example, Green Acres, okay? In Green Acres, the TV show, everyone is crazy except the straight man. Does anyone know who the straight man is in the TV show Green Acres?
The husband.
The husband, right? He is a realistic Wall Street lawyer, right? But his wife is absurd. All the other characters are absurd. And when Lisa, his wife, says that the Eiffel Tower is in London, it's not in Paris. And later, at the end of the show, they cut to a picture of London. And there's the Eiffel Tower sticking up in the middle of London. I mean, that is surreal humor. So you take the straight man and they act normal, bored, detached, and that increases the comic tension. So my example here, I've got several examples actually. So one example here is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. Basically, the underlying plot of all three books is all you need is a towel to travel intergalactically. Forget everything else, all you need is a towel. So I'll give you an example from the first book, 1979, in which the Earth is destroyed to make way for an intergalactic interstate. But Ford saves Arthur Dent by having him sucked up into a spaceship with his towel. So this is it, said Arthur. We're going to die. Yes, said Ford. Except, no, wait a minute. He suddenly lunged across the chamber at something behind Arthur's line of vision. What's this switch? He cried. What? Where? Cried Arthur, twisting around. No, I was only fooling, said Ford. We're going to die after all. So it's absurd. Okay, the whole concept is absurd. And Arthur Dent is the straight man trying to, understand why he's on a spaceship, why they're running an intergalactic interstate, and how the entire Earth got destroyed to make room. Another example of surreal humor, one of my favorite books, is Catch-22, written in 1961. There was only one catch, and that was Catch-22, which specified that a concern for one's safety in the face of dangers that were real and immediate was the process of a rational mind. Or was crazy and could be grounded. All he had to do was ask, and as soon as he did, he would no longer be crazy and have to fly more missions. Or would be crazy to fly more missions and sane if he didn't. But if he was sane, he had to fly them. If he flew them, he was crazy and didn't have to. But if he didn't want to, he was sane and had to. Yossarian was moved very deeply by the absolute simplicity of this clause of Catch-22 and let out a respectful whistle. That's some catch, that Catch-22 he observed. It's the best there is. Doc Danica agreed. Okay, totally absurd, right? That you know, the juxtaposition of crazy and sane against each other. Another favorite book of mine that some of you may have read called A Confederacy of Dunces. Okay, this is written by John Kennedy Toole, a New Orleans man, and it's the only book he wrote, and it was published and won a Pulitzer Prize after his suicide. Unfortunately, his mother got it published. In which a crazy, large, lazy 30-year-old New Orleans mama's boy, his name is Ignatius J. Riley, attempts to enter the world of work and feminine company while maintaining his illogical philosophical and world views. Mayhem ensues. Again, remember, we're dealing with surreal humor. I suspect that beneath your offensive and vulgarly effeminate facade, there may be a soul of sorts. Have you read widely in Boethius? Who? Oh, heavens no, I never read newspapers. Then you must begin a reading program immediately so that you may understand the crises of our age, Ignatius said solemnly. Begin with the late Romans, including Boethius, of course. Then you should dip rather extensively into early medieval. You may skip the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. That is most dangerous propaganda. Now that I think of it, you had better skip the Romantics and Victorians too. For the contemporary period, you should study some selected comic books. You're fantastic. I recommend Batman especially, for he tends to transcend the abysmal society in which he's found himself. His morality is rather rigid also. I rather respect Batman. Ginger?
Okay, yeah. So observational humor, which is another one of my favorites. So this is when you just find humor in everyday experiences that are relatable to a broad swath of the population, like parenting, travel, house guests, doctor visits. Some of the observational writers include David Sedaris, Irma Bombeck, and Dave Barry. It's about things. Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry.
I added some stuff after we talked.
Oh, okay.
So it's about things that the author has noticed, and maybe other people that are reading it have also noticed it, but never really thought that everybody else went through the same thing. And if it's too obvious of an observation, it won't really be funny. But if it's too obscure, it also won't hit home with the reader. So one of the examples I have, my kids actually, when they were little, they hated it, but I would use them as examples. Like one Christmas, one of my sons is named Toby, and he got up early Christmas morning and he was opening all the presents because he had just was learning his alphabet and his name, and he saw the TO and he thought all the presents were for Toby. That did not go over well with his older brother, Stefan. Another one is when you're sitting in a doctor's waiting room, and do you really have to ask why they referred to you as a patient? I mean, who else has a waiting room? I sure would have liked to say to my kids when they were little, hey, why don't you just go in the waiting room and be patient? The other thing about doctors is it's called a practice, which is not really all that comforting. You think they should know by now what they're doing. They're not just practicing. Okay. So, okay. So I'm going to read you an example that I wrote about how to get a house guest to volunteer for a chore. So when you're expecting house guests, it's good to have a list of projects, you know, just in case they ask, is there anything you need help with? This is the situation I found myself in when my friends Mary Ann and Tom showed up for a visit in my new condo recently. I needed to replace my locks, and I had already purchased new ones, and I placed them prominently on my kitchen table. After a while, Tom said, hey, if you have any projects you need help with, just let me know. Now, in that case, most people would probably say, oh, I couldn't impose. I, on the other hand, am not like most people. Oh, well, since you asked, I said to Tom, I have these locks that need to be installed right here on my kitchen table. As he unpacked the boxes with the locks, he said, one trick with these projects is to always be sure that you can put everything back in the box, you know, in case you decide not to do the project after all. This made me pretty nervous. Now that's an interesting take, I said. My friend Jim, who also often finds himself doing projects for me, always finishes his projects. I figured that most guys have enough of an ego that they don't want to hear that someone else might be better at projects. So Mary Ann and I are sitting out on the lanai sipping our wine, and she shared with me that she was a little bit worried. Tom usually needs a couple of weeks to complete any project around our house, she said. Since they were hopefully only visiting for a few days, I also grew worried, particularly when I noticed that Tom had already taken out the old lock and there was now a round hole in the door. That's when Tom announced that he had reached an impasse and could not figure out how to remove the remaining screws. Oh, I can help with that, I quickly exclaimed. After all, I didn't want him to think that I was completely helpless. I grabbed my computer and I Googled video of how to remove screws from a lock when it is not obvious how the screws come out. Well, sure enough, there were 17 related videos. The first one in the list was 25 minutes long. Oh, that's far too much information, I thought. The next one was 17 seconds. Oh, surely far too little. I was feeling like Goldilocks. Finally, I found one that was just the right length, 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Tom watched it with me, walked over to the door, and 1 minute later announced, "Got it." Have I mentioned how much I love YouTube? They have a solution for just about any problem that arises. Well, okay, maybe they don't have a good solution for getting your husband to put the toilet seat down, but then again, that's not a problem I need a solution for. Being single sometimes has its advantages.
Yeah. Why do you think, I'd like to hear from some of the other people because Ginger and I are doing all the talking. Why is that funny? And what aspects of that are funny and make people laugh? Because I did hear some laughing in the background there.
Yeah, I was laughing because I just had a recent YouTube experience with my son in which I mistakenly said that the insulation in the attic of the home he just bought for his son was vermiculite, and vermiculite is probably going to include asbestos. And it turned out it was not that, but I wound him up pretty good before finally realizing that it wasn't the vermiculite, it was the rock wall. But from the picture he had sent me, I was a little confused. It caused quite a bit of concern, and actually I've called him twice since then and he hasn't answered the calls, so I think he's still upset. But I did find out one thing though. This is very important, that there is the zonulite removal trust, zonulite being vermiculite, and this trust was set up in 2014 and has 20 years to run, and it will pay 55% of the cost of removal of the vermiculite and replacement of new approved insulation. So, all's well that ends well.
Deborah, you raised your hand.
Yes, I think it's funny because it's so relatable for almost everyone there is, because not just everybody is handy with things. And sometimes we have that gender confusion, thinking he's a guy. Well, yeah, he can do all that. Well, not necessarily, just not necessarily. So I just thought it was funny if you've ever had a project and then the part where you're asking for the help to kind of let someone feel important, and they're just not all, anybody that's been through that, whether it's, a spouse, your brother, I just think it's funny, and I would not be able to do those doors either. So anyway, I think that
this is very relatable to what you write, Deborah, because a lot of
It
your
kind of is.
humor is, I would say, falls within the observational humor category, wouldn't you?
I think so. And that, I think that's kind of like an antidote sometimes, if there's some frustration in something, is to find the humor in it. That's what I think. And it can just be crazy stuff that people that haven't lived certain things can't even imagine. And so it puts them into that spot of something they haven't thought of before. But that is funny. In my world, that is funny. I like that.
Okay. So let me ask you one more question, Deborah. When you write your humorous pieces, okay, how do you make them from humor as opposed to depressing? Like you're trying to get Bailey to do something, right? And she doesn't want to do it.
Yeah,
and you find a way to do it. How do you make that be humorous as opposed to, oh, depressing, dealing with a
Yeah.
young
like I've
girl?
had it, and like I do feel like that sometimes, but I don't usually want to put that on paper. I think I do it maybe from an older person's perspective sometimes, because or how ridiculous from that an outsider that has not experienced this, how ridiculous they think it sounds. And it's like, hey, that's just the way it is. And from an older person looking at it, because sometimes we can put it in more perspective, where you're like, yeah, oh, well, there you go. Another call from the school, another call just last week, you guys. I just a little footnote. Did any of you know that it's against the rules to draw penises and vaginas in your math book?
Okay, there's a story right there, Deborah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I have to cool off
In
first.
Florida, it's a capital offense.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Especially if you label it, right? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, sometimes that is
I'm gonna
my,
look for that story.
yes, it'll be coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
It'll be coming.
Heather, you were gonna say something about observational humor?
Well, there's an awful lot of it in the UK because basically all our most popular stand-up comedians, that's what they do. But on that particular story, I was going to say the bit that really got me was the idea of, that phrase, anything you need help with. And I was visualizing that, well, like when you've got friends over and you're making dinner or something, and they say, oh, is there anything you need help with? Meaning, can they, chop the parsley or something? And you suddenly bring out all those locks and go, yes, I just need all these put on the door. Even more extreme. That's how I was thinking, oh, that's good fun. Yeah. And I just thought that whole anything you need help with could be really played about with, really made extreme.
That's cute. Yeah, I think that the thing about the guys not wanting to appear to be less competent than another guy is also something a lot of people can relate to. But it's again what we talked about before of sort of making a joke about a certain class of people. It's touchy for some.
Mhm. Yeah, there's nothing funny about white males. I want you to know that. Okay.
Fellow that wrote that book that you referred to, somebody Kennedy Toole. I think
Oh, yes.
he
What?
should change his last name, actually.
I'm sorry?
I think he should change his last name.
Oh, you do you?
I
Well.
wouldn't walk around with the name Toole.
I see. Okay. All
Okay,
right.
so this brings us from observational humor to topical humor. So this is talking about a current event, and of course the late night comedians do a fabulous job of this. With writing, it's a little bit more difficult because writing needs to last. So it could be a newspaper article or something, but even writing a magazine article, sometimes that current event, by the time the magazine comes out, people have forgotten about it. So current is really, it's important, and it's very difficult to keep something current in writing. So they can be jokes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad.
Like I say, the late night comedians, anybody that remembers the top 10 lists and everything, that's a good example of it. But then again, that's not writing. Dave Barry does a great annual review, but he has to find things that really people will remember after the end of the year. And that's not true for every single thing that went on. Okay. Okay, so this is an example of Dave Barry from Dave Barry Slept Here. Now this is from 1989, but it's still, it could be applied today. The Democrats seem to be basically nicer people, but they have demonstrated time and again that they have the management skills of celery. They're the kind of people who'd stop to help you change a flat, but would somehow manage to set your car on fire. I would be reluctant to entrust them with a Cuisinart, let alone the economy. The Republicans, on the other hand, would know how to fix your tire, but they wouldn't bother to stop because they'd want to be on time for ugly pants night at the country club.
I like that.
So it is amazing when you think that this was actually written, you know, in 1989. How many years ago is that? 30, 40 years ago, 30, yeah, 40 years. So, and yet they stand the test of time.
Yep. And my comment at the bottom was, you know, Democrats' management skills are now below that of a sea slug, and the Republicans are too busy overthrowing the government to go to the country club anymore. So it shows how these kind of things don't really last, you know, that well. Okay, here's my least favorite slide: bodily humor, also known as toilet, potty, or scatological humor. I think this basically works if you're writing for 14-year-old boys. You know, and we have one person on here today who writes for 13-year-old girls, and he doesn't use any of this stuff. But there's an entire series called Captain Underpants. Who knew? I had to research it and learn about it, and that's enough about bodily humor. I mean, fart and poop jokes, I mean, I don't think they're meant for mainstream audiences. Which brings me to dark humor. A humorous look at the evil or foolish side of humans. All right. And, you know, and so what is dark humor? Dark humor is also known as black comedy, dark comedy, gallows humor. It makes light of subjects generally considered taboo. You know, examples of things that people don't generally joke about: death, harvesting of organs from live people, starvation, war, discrimination. They're not usually humorous articles. You know, they're not usually the fodder for humorous stories or humorous books. And, you know, I trace this one back to about 1729 when Jonathan Swift proposed that the Irish eat their children to avoid starvation. I'm not sure that he really intended for that to be anything more than dark humor, but before that, there really doesn't seem to be any more examples of that. So let me give you an example of dark humor. And, you know, this is not the best example I could find, but I only have a little amount of space. But so this is from the Postmortal from Drew McGarry, he's actually a screenwriter, but he wrote a book in 2011 called The Postmortal, in which a cure for death from disease is found. And note, death from disease is found that freezes characters' age at when they get the shots. Death by murder and accident remain and may even become desirable. Obviously, too many people, too few resources, and bizarre religiosity ensue. But I knew it was a lie. I've always known it was a lie. You cannot hide from the world. It will find you. It always does. And now it has found me. My split second of immortality is over. All that's left now is the end, which is all any of us ever have. So he's making fun of death there, which is not usually something people make fun of. But given the situation with his book, it becomes understandable. Ginger?
Oh, this is mine. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so wit and wordplay, which is Bob and I both really like this. So, and he found these wonderful examples from Oscar Wilde. Some cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. And another one is, to lose one's parent may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. And for the third one, I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train.
So next I'm gonna introduce you to Swifties and Spoonerisms, okay? Now the Swifties came out from the Tom Swift stories. They were written by Edward Stratemeyer, and he started in 1910. And Edward Stratemeyer never found an adverb he didn't love. This man single-handedly killed off the adverb as a use of speech, hence Stephen King's advice to take out all your adverbs from your story and never use them. But we're going to show you some Swifties. Now, Swifties are not Taylor Swift fans for you younger generation. Swifties, an example of a Swiftie is, I need a pencil sharpener, said Tom bluntly.
Or
Or
I
Ginger?
have a split personality, said Tom, being frank.
Cute.
This must be an aerobics class Tom worked out.
I couldn't believe there were 527,986 bees in the swarm, Tom recounted. Stingingly?
I added the stingingly because I thought it's a chance to use two adverbs. Two adverbs has got to be better than one, right? I only have diamonds, clubs, and spades, said Tom heartlessly to his auntie.
Don't add too much water, said Tom with great concentration.
I manufacture tabletops for shops, said Tom counterproductively.
Good one.
All right, this one I got to read because Ginger blushes when I show her this one. This was a contest for best Swifties I entered, and I didn't win, which is I can't understand because this is totally brilliant. I really should stop having sex with farm animals, Tom said sheepishly.
And you didn't win?
I did
No,
not
he
win.
lost.
I think the contest was rigged, don't you? Now, the next one, I'm going to read the next one too, because it's not PC, but we don't have any non-PC humor in here, but you know, we talked about Polish jokes and things like that, but there are still, you know, ways to be non-PC, you know, that you can leave in, take out, whatever your feeling is, but I'm checking your non-PC humor here. I didn't know grandma was black, Tom said darkly. Okay, is that acceptable? You have to decide. I don't know.
Depends on the
Along with-
audience, probably.
I'm sorry, what?
True.
It depends on the audience, yeah.
Yes, I think so. And yeah, and it depends on the context too. Okay. I mean, the problem with Swifties is they all include these adverbs, which make them into jokes instead of good writing. So I'm a fan of Stephen King, and I wish I didn't have any adverbs in my stories. Sometimes they sneak in, but I'm pretty sure they don't resort to puns. Now, a Spoonerism is named after Reverend Spooner. And a Spoonerism, he actually, when he was giving his sermons, would mess up words. So an example is, did we make your bunny phone ring? Okay. It's, did we make your funny bone ring? But because he reverses the syllables or the phonetics, it comes out bunny phone. And apparently when he would give his sermons, they would come out inadvertently. And those are known as Spoonerisms.
Did he do that on purpose?
The general consensus is no.
Okay,
He would get caught up in his sermons and they would just come out that way.
okay. Wait, before we go to the next slide, I wanted to add, has anybody ever heard of the Sniglets? I think they were in the 80s. And they are words that don't exist but should. And my two favorites are perpetuation. And that's when you run your vacuum cleaner over a piece of lint repeatedly and it won't suck up into the vacuum cleaner. And so you pick it up, you reach down, you pick it up and you put it into the vacuum cleaner. That's called perpetuation. And the other one is rignition. And that's when you turn the key in your car when it's already running, rignition.
Rignition, huh? I like
And
that.
you could
Yeah.
just slip those in, you know, if you're writing a story and everyone will know what it is.
The thing about the Sniglets, as I remember, was it was inventing words for things that didn't have names, like you
Right.
just did. Yes. So you're inventing words, which is absolutely great for humor. There's no reason why you can't do that. Now, keep staying with my non-PC theme, we're going to talk about double entendres for naughty writers. Okay, this one is me, isn't it? Yes, it is me. I didn't think this was Ginger. This doesn't sound like Ginger's style. All right. Okay. So Canterbury Tales and Shakespeare are full of double entendres. Okay. Unfortunately, as word usage and colloquialisms change, they lose their punch. So you really almost have to be a Shakespearean scholar to find all the double entendres in Shakespeare. But being a person who has Google and internet, I went for some modern instances where I found a bunch from the movies and one from a book. And the thing is the movies have to be written anyhow. They have scripts. So here's a few. So in the orbiting final scene of Moonraker was in 1979, where Roger Moore played Bond. He is taking Dr. Holly Goodhead, that's one, round the world one more time, two, and as he's doing it, Q says to Sir Frederick Gray, M, I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. Three. That's three double entendres in a row, and you gotta admire that because that's not easy to do. Okay, but Bond is a great source of double entendres, and The World Is Not Enough from 1999, this time with Pierce Brosnan. He's in bed with a Dr. Christmas Jones, and he tells her, I thought Christmas only comes once a year. Okay. Okay. And Mae West, who is a master. And by the way, Mae West wrote all her own lines. It's not like some evil director made her say this stuff. She wrote her own lines. I feel like a million tonight, but only one at a time. And is that a pickle in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Keep in mind, she wrote both of those. Now, I did find one in a book, Myra Breckenridge, not one of my favorite books by a long shot, but it did have a good double entendre. I'm the kind of girl who works for Paramount by day and Fox all night. Okay, there you go.
Grown.
All right, back to Ginger, right, Ginger?
Okay, yeah, let's get off that slide. Okay, so there's dry humor. So, and I think Bob is a master at this. So it's sometimes it's called deadpan, highbrow, quippy, repartee, wisecrack, droll, or wry. And not everybody gets it all the time. So it's an intelligent kind of humor. You're expecting your audience to have at least some background in some of this writing. And it's the complete opposite of slapstick humor, which pretty much anybody would get. Whether they find it funny or not is a different story. And there's a lack of visual cues in this dry humor. It requires the reader's mind to be active and engaged. You can't just be, doing something else and listening to this. You really have to pay attention. And it's not really always laugh out loud funny. And like I said, a lot of people just won't get it, but you're probably not writing for them anyway. Characters who have dry humor often have very little or absolutely no emotion at all. And a big part of what makes it funny is that the person appears to be serious. So, so this is an example from P.G. Wodehouse. Am I pronouncing that right?
Woodhouse.
Woodhouse. Okay. Yes, you told me that and I've forgotten it. From 1934. Right ho, Jeeves. Beginning with a critique of my own limbs, which she said justly enough, were nothing to write home about, this girl went on to dissect my manners, morals, intellect, general physique, and method of eating asparagus with such acerbity that by the time she had finished, the best you could say of Bertram was that, so far as was known, he had never actually committed murder or set fire to an orphan asylum. And this is an example of somebody who uses way too many commas. Another favorite trait of Bob's.
Yeah, I like all those commas, but you know that, Ginger.
I do. Okay, so this is for the poets among us. A lot of nonsense writers often use rhyming for humor, and Dr. Seuss and Ogden Nash are two great examples of this. And when my kids were little, I loved reading Dr. Seuss because it's just so much fun to read. So we took a look. We saw a nook. On his head, he had a hook. On his hook, he had a book. On his book was how to cook. We saw him sit and try to cook. But a nook can't read, so a nook can't cook. So what good to a nook is a hook cookbook? And then we have Ogden Nash. The 1L llama, he's a priest. The 2L llama, he's a beast. And I will bet my silk pajama there isn't any 3L llama. Okay, so now we have, we want to get you all involved. So I hope we'll give you a minute to go get a pen and paper. And we want you to write a humorous paragraph or two about this smug broad, who I'm sure you all recognize. And we'll leave this up on the screen so you can use one or more of the 8 types of humor. And I won't read through them all. I want to give you guys plenty of time, but those are the 8 types that you should look at them and try to integrate them into your writing. So what do we have, Bob? About 5 minutes for this?
Yeah, we'll give them 5 to 10. We're good on time. We're doing well on time.
Okay, good. And we'll just be quiet because, you know, they don't want to hear us bantering while they're writing.
Right. But we'll leave the picture of the whoever she is up there. Ginger, should I play the theme to Jeopardy while they're writing?
Benny Hill.
Hey, Ginger, I'm gonna give him like another 4 minutes, okay? And then you reel him in.
Okay. I don't know if we need that much longer, but let's see.
Okay.
It looks like a
Yeah.
lot of people are already looking up.
Oh, all right. Well, whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started.
All right, well, I'll give you 2 more minutes, everybody.
Okay. See, Ginger's not nearly as nice as I am.
It's getting boring.
Only for us, we're not writing.
I know.
You got a cramp, Eileen, or are you waving to me? What's the story?
I got to run, but I just wanted to tell you, I am an old woman trapped in the mind of a 14-year-old boy, and I like poop jokes, and I love to watch videos of farting pugs and things like that. But I just wanted to say that A Confederacy of Dunces is one of my all-time favorites too. I don't often get Bob's dry humor because, as Ginger said, it takes a certain level of intelligence sometimes to like be able to pick up on it. But I just want to say I've really loved this. I've been listening every minute, and I have to run. But anyway.
Okay, before you go,
Good luck.
before you go, are you gonna read?
No, I didn't have time to write anything because I'm packing and doing stuff, and people are coming and going. That's why I had my big fat head on there all this time, but I've listened. And I just want to say goodbye to everybody. And I think I'll probably still come on to the meetings, but this one was great. So thanks, Ginger and Bob and you guys.
Well, good luck with everything, Eileen, and keep in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay.
Oh, and
All
by
right.
the way, so don't forget, my book's coming out in October. Don't forget to buy my book. There's my plug.
All right. We'll publicize
Okay.
it. Let Denise
Okay.
know. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Bob, I think we can wrap it up. Let's see who wants to start reading. Ginny, I see your hand.
It's only short. Why do people always think they know what I'm smiling about? It's a bloody grimace if you'd look closer. Oh my God, my wrist hurts. The fool lost his balance.
Very good.
Okay. Martin?
Okay. This comes from a little different perspective. It's titled The Question. I wonder who he is, that funny man with the beard and the brush. Is he painting my boobs? Should I show more of them? No, that would give him too much time to do. And I would be late for my date with my date at the well.
Okay. I can't see everyone at once. Oh, Bill. You're on mute, Bill. Okay.
She sits across the table with the smug countenance of condemnation, judge and jury, supremely confident in her evaluation of my prospects. A second date is never going to happen.
Good.
Good.
Ed?
Yeah, I think I've got several kinds of humor in this, and I took out the one adverb that I had in here, paying attention to our friend up there on Casey Key. So anyways, the first thing I would say, kind of on a wit and wordplay thing, is in the title, Mona Lisa. Mona is spelled Moana. Okay. 15-year-old Lisa Gherardini married Francesco del Giocondo 24 years her senior in 1495, resulting in an unhappy future with an older man. Lenny, sensing that immediately, which I could knock out as an adverb, when commissioned by Frank to paint her portrait, demanding absolute privacy while working in the studio, it was short work for Lenny to win the affection of the lovely Lisa. The court, let alone the world, did not realize she was naked under the robe. Lenny's practiced hands roamed all the interior regions as he posed her for what would become the painting with a mysterious smile. Is that mysterious smile so hard to understand? Okay, I quit.
That's good. Harry?
I just have a one-liner. I believe that laxative is starting to work.
Lee?
Does have that look.
Being a poet, I did a limerick. Mona Lisa sat looking hostile. She didn't grin for a very long while. Everyone wonders, was it a blunder? Just how did Da Vinci make her smile?
Very nice. Let's see.
Deanna?
Denise?
First of all, I'll say I'm known for not having a sense of humor, and I love slapstick, but other kinds of humor often elude me. And if this is humor, it's dark humor and maybe commentary as well. So here goes. It came out as a poem. My smile belies crafty intent, like the dark lake behind me, a potion to vent. The furies rise, defend my sex from majority male politicians with their feet on our necks.
Nice.
Yes.
Deanna?
So you think I'd make a good senator? Let me tell you, I come from a family that plays the blues. They all have horns and none know red buttons.
Did we miss anybody that wanted to read?
Deborah and Pam.
Okay. Oh, and Gloria and Heather. Okay. Yeah. All right. So Deborah?
All right. If that son of a bleep doesn't hurry up, I'm going to pee myself, she thought. Look serene, he says. Make like you have a secret that no one can guess. That's it. Yeah. It seems he could, excuse me. It seems he could have given me a break since I'm in a unionized posers guild. Mona, we're almost done for the day. What's that puddle on the floor?
Very nice.
Irreverent.
And a little body humor. Gotta
Yeah,
give
low
you some
body
credit.
humor, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Denise got in the dark and you got in the body humor. I'm impressed.
Yeah, we should actually, we should have asked each person before they read what parts of humor they're using. So Gloria, which one of the ones, let's go back a slide, Bob.
Okay, sure.
There, okay. So Gloria, are you, can you tell us which kind of humor you're going to use?
Okay. Self-deprecating and wordplay. I think that's what it should be.
Okay.
My boyfriend said I was dishwater dull with no mystery. Since everyone admires Mona Lisa's mystery, I surprised him by shaving my eyebrows, plucking out my eyelashes, plastering on my cheesiest smile, and sitting demurely with my hands crossed. He said, "Damn, girl, I Louvre your new style, but that Madonna complex has got to go."
Okay, good. Heather, did you want to read?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure what this first one falls into. So there's two very short ones. So Mike says, "Stop smiling." And Mona says, "I can't help it. Your downstairs neighbors got one of them new printing presses and the vibrations are coming up through the chair." And then the second one is one of the ones, but I can't remember what they're called. "I'm sick and tired of being an artist model," said Mona Lisa.
Okay.
Jack explained doesn't work, but yeah.
Pam said her hand up, Ginger.
Okay, sorry. I can't see everybody at once.
Okay.
Pam?
All right, this is probably wit. "Oh, yes, I have a secret." "Uh-huh. You want to know?" "Well, I don't think so. Just as we were going to have some fun, he left. Why, I wonder? Couldn't be that his wife was calling. No cell phones yet."
That's good. Okay, did we miss anybody?
Yeah, you and Bob.
Well, so was it you, Ed, that said you were spelling Mona Lisa with Moana? And
Correct.
that's an example of when you write something, you can use certain things like that you can't use when you're talking. It just wouldn't come across. You'd have to explain it like you did. And I wanted to write, when I moved back from Germany after living there for 20 years, I wanted to write a book with the title "The Worst Is Over," and I would have spelled it WURST.
Yeah, cute.
Yeah.
So, Bob, any comments?
No, I think everyone was really creative, and I think
Yeah.
actually I would have bet anything that no one did bodily humor or dark humor, and boy, would I have been wrong, because you guys all hit them all. So I was very impressed.
Yeah.
So moving on before we get to the Q&A part. Okay, so I thought I'd share some of my favorite authors, humorous authors. No particular order except maybe Tom Sharp for is great. His last 4 books are not good. They repeat. He kind of runs out of ideas and repeats himself. I like Chaucer, the Tales of the Wife of Bath. Obviously, Oscar Wilde. Some of his other stuff is depressing, like The Ballad of Reading Gaol, but basically some of his plays are really witty. I like P.G. Wodehouse, Joseph Heller. He's always humorous, but nothing he's done has ever been as good as Catch-22. Someone I didn't get a chance to mention, and I really would have liked to mention, is Sue Townsend. She, especially now the Queen is gone, because she has a book called The Queen and I, where basically England becomes a republic and the Queen is sent to forced to live in public housing.
It's very funny.
And that's, did someone say they read that one?
Yeah, it's very, very funny.
Yes.
Observational humor, very funny.
Yes, because public housing in the UK is not always great. And what you don't get to control control as your neighbors. And the Queen's family has a little bit of problem with their neighbors. And she wrote the Adrian Mole Diaries, which I think they made a movie of one of them. John Kennedy Toole with the Confederacy of Dunces. Christopher Moore, that was, he has some San Francisco vampire tales, which are just hilarious. They're a new take, and there's probably 4 books, and they are definitely a new take on vampires. I'm not big on magic and horror and stuff like that, but they make me laugh. I really like A.A. Milne. I wanted to get some poets in here. His poetry is very funny. You might think he's aimed at kids, but it's not for kids. And I don't even think Winnie the Pooh is really for kids either. I do like Dave Barry's year-end reviews, but as Ginger pointed out, after 1 year, they're old. Philip Roth is just very psychological, I guess. David Lodge, he writes British and Catholic humor. When I say Catholic humor, he's writing humor about Catholic issues. He has one book called How Far Can You Go? And I think you can figure out what that's about. Kurt Vonnegut, humor, and very funny, but heavy irony that some people just can't get past the irony, but there's a lot of humor there. Max Schulman, who wrote in the heyday of Jewish humor in the 50s, very funny. But Joseph Tropper kind of is an updated Max Schulman for the millennial generation. Carl Hyacin, as we all know, Florida humor. Nick Hornby, About a Boy, High Fidelity, things like that, very funny. Lewis Carroll, Ellis stories are my favorite, but I also like his poetry a lot. Gilbert and Sullivan, the librettos from W.S. Gilbert, if you could see the number of puns and jokes in there, you have to buy a copy of all the libretto because there are so many puns and jokes in Gilbert and Sullivan that probably go over the head of the audience because they're coming so fast. And Ogden Nash, I really like his poetry. The bad news for everyone is I have a complete collection of his poems, and it's like 800 pages long. All right, Ginger?
Okay, so I don't have as many. So I like Ginger Kuenzel, G. Kuenzel, Ginger K. Those are my top 3 faves. And then I've already mentioned Dave Barry. I've always loved him. Bill Bryson, who has written, he lived in Great Britain for a while and wrote some very funny articles, both about life in Great Britain, and he's written a lot about the US, hiking on the Appalachian Trail. Was one of them. Irma Bombeck, anybody that's raised kids, she does a lot of that. And one of my favorite, I think it's the title of a book, it's certainly something she came out with, was when I look like my passport photo, it's time to go home. And then there's Garrison Keillor, David Sedaris, and Dr. Seuss, who we've already mentioned.
Okay, and one of my favorite Irma Bombeck titles, and the books are kind of similar, but one of my favorite titles is "If Life is a Bowl of Cherries, Why Am I Always in the Pits?"
Yeah.
So, who are some of your favorites? Who can you guys should share with us? You know, some of the humorous authors that we've missed in our analysis here. Anybody?
Did anybody see the Carol Burnett 90th celebration?
I missed it. What was it on? What channel was it on?
Oh, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was NBC, but it's, if you go into Xfinity or whatever you have, you can find it. It was just, it reminded me of the real, I hate to call it slapstick because I consider a Benny Hill a slapstick person and I never did find him too funny. But Harvey Korman and Tim Conway, I mean, they went back. I mean, some of it, you won't stop laughing if you watch it. It's really worth watching.
Harry?
I would add Woody Allen.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Denise.
Yeah, I thought of Rita Mae Brown from the 70s writer, feminist writer. She's pretty funny. And most recently, I read the novel Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garamis, which just, it dealt with a lot of topics, but also had me in stitches most of the time. It's really a great read.
Good. Heather, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, Lessons in Chemistry is very good. Yeah, the one I was going to mention was Jane Austen. I love her observational humor, very topical for a time, about people, and also not written particularly, but performance humor is, of course, the Monty Python crew. They use exaggeration a lot. When you guys said exaggeration in observational humor, it reminded me of them, because they use exaggeration an awful lot in their humor.
Okay. Am I missing anyone?
Lee Hall's got a hand up.
Okay.
This author, his name is Hamilton Mall. He always wrote about kids and sports, but he wrote one book that was hilarious. And it's this one here. It's called Rub-a-Dub-Dub, and it's about the Merchant Marines. It is the funniest book I've ever read. I mean, roll on the floor laughing, funny. Now, whether it's still in publication or not, I don't know, but you can borrow it if you'd like. It's hilarious.
Okay, great. Martin, you had Mark Twain. Yeah.
Bill?
Yeah, I like a lot Mark Twain's work, and boy, he put out one heck of a lot of that work, and a lot of his humor is subtle.
Yeah.
It's not violent or strong or come out, but it's there. It's buried throughout most everything that he's done.
Yeah. And a lot of it's self-deprecating when he went to
Yes.
Europe.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, like Innocents Abroad is self-deprecating humor, and it is one of the funniest things I've ever read. And I forgot him, Martin. I left him off the list. Sorry.
It's okay. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I recently read
No.
Trevor Noah's Born a Criminal. It's his life story
great.
growing up in South Africa, and he's pretty funny. He gets himself into some situations and such, and I think the title Born a Criminal is kind of humorous in itself too.
Sure.
Actually,
Wonderful book. I loved that book.
yeah. Actually, when you think about it, it's humor that really makes the world go round. If there isn't any humor in something, it's not human.
I think Martin brings up a good point, is that even when I write a serious story, I try to, get something in there to relieve the tension.
Right.
Some kind of, humorous moment, and then the tension can build again. So I think you're right that humor is very important.
Yeah, like today.
Yeah, I do that.
Today, I could find humor in the presentation of the confirmation of Prince Charles.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to get into what I found humorous, but
You're not?
it was there.
How about the silly hats, Martin? The silly hats. They all have hats, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
they're, whatever hat, whether whoever's in attendance had a hat, and you could do a lot with that. I can see Ginger doing some of her stories about
And
hats
the
on
way
the
they were,
balcony or something.
the way they were balancing these crowns on their head, the little hats and stuff. It was, yeah.
Just thinking about this presentation today, it made me think that we've lost some of the oral tradition of joke telling. And I think that's, that was something that enriched us, enriched our sense of community, or, I just remember my grandfather would anytime I saw him, he'd tell you a joke. I mean, an oral tradition, little story, sometimes off color, whatever. jokes, and they always made me laugh, and it was part of our rituals as a family that he would come in with an off-color lewd joke, but we all laughed at it, you know. And when you think about it, in our gatherings today, that's really, you know, it was more common, I think, in the 50s maybe, or 60s to have that joke telling kind of thing, which you don't hear as much about today.
Yeah, good point. I mean, there are still people that tell jokes. Some of them tell too many jokes.
Yeah, that's
There
true.
are on
That's
there
true.
are on TV and stuff too, but I mean, it's just, you know, in social gatherings, it doesn't seem to happen as like it used to, I think.
Hmm.
I have a book or an author,
Yes.
and I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but I just Googled it while we were on here. His name is Adam Mansback. Mansbeck. He writes, they look like a children's book, but there's disclaimers on them because there's a lot of profanity. If that offends people, that I get that, but it's that one of his books, and he has a series, is called Go the F to Sleep. So it's like
I've
maybe
seen
for
that
young
book.
parents, like maybe for young parents.
Yeah.
And you go through it, and the illustrations are sort of cute, but like I said, there's big disclaimers on it. And it's called an irreverent series of something or other, but it's pretty funny. It could be offensive, but you just have to be in that real funny mood, I guess, or having just trying to put a toddler down to bed for the 8th or 10th time, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah. So I just wanted to add that because I had heard of them, but I didn't know the author. So yeah.
Great.
Right. Ginger, I'm moving on then.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is
Okay.
you.
So these are some of the sites where you can submit your humor writing. McSweeney's, and you can Google any of these to find them. We didn't put all the website URLs up there, but McSweeney's is the most well-known, and they have they have different sites and magazines. And then defenestration, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but
You got it.
and these are for if your story or your satire or poetry is out of this world or just out the window. And people that know French know that that's is the word for window in French. Slackjaw, very difficult to get into. They reject about 85% of their submissions. The Haven is pretty easy to get into. I've had some pieces in there. They're on Medium. I don't know if who all uses medium.com, but it's a great site to publish your writing on. And they have different publications within Medium. So I would suggest if you're trying to place pieces, just to take a look at Medium and Google the types of writing that you are writing, types of genre, and find magazine or publications within Medium that take those. So the Haven is kind of like the Onion, and they have fake news and funny poetry and cartoons, but also just humorous pieces. Jane Austen's Wastebasket, they like humor inspired by literature or history or some of those other non-lucrative college courses. They like shorter pieces, 400 to 800 words. And Muddy which is, I've also written quite a bit for them, and they're kind of pirate themed, but your stuff doesn't have to be pirate, but they're a little slapstick. They're always using pirate language when they're calling for submissions and that sort of thing. But those are just some of the places to take a look at. Okay, so now we get to the Q&A, and so does anybody have any questions for us that we might be able to make up some answers to? Bob, I'm going to let you call on people because I'm having a hard time keeping
Okay.
it screen.
No problem. I'm just checking. I got to check see who's still on. We've lost about half our audience, Ginger. I think
I noticed that.
I think that's probably my fault. So anyhow,
Can we stop the screen sharing so we can all see each other?
okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Well, we got one more slide after this. So why don't we come back to the Q&A? I'll just make the last slide and then I'll start with screen share. So wrapping it up, why write humor? Okay. I think it's fun. I think Ginger thinks it's fun too. And there's a lot of satisfaction in someone reading something you've written that was humorous. Get a lot of satisfaction if they laugh too. There's also kind of a satisfaction, not a satisfaction, but it's a feedback loop if they don't laugh. Okay, because then you know that you've either trespassed into some area that's not as funny to everybody, or you just need to rewrite it. But my biggest reason for writing humor is that it's scientifically proven that for every person you make laugh, you get 37 seconds more on Earth. So if you do the math and you make people laugh, then it's you've helped yourself and others. So we're going to do Q&As, but without the slide sharing. So there's everybody.
Oh, there's everybody again. Yeah, that's nice to see everybody at once.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I don't think we lost too many people.
Oh, okay. We lost them on your slide, Ginger. It was when you were talking, they all dropped off.
No, it was yours.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to be self-deprecating here.
Oh, okay. Don't make me resort to bodily humor.
Oh, no. Please, questions, everybody.
Yes.
No question, just a response. It was a wonderful program. Thank you both. Very, very good. Well
Glad you
designed.
enjoyed it.
Moved right along. We had a lot of fun. It was good. Very good. Oh, one question I have. I've been reading a new series of books by Cynthia Harrod -Eagles. They're Brit crime movies, crime novels, procedural novels. Bill Slider is her chief inspector. But anyway, there is one character in there who confuses phrases like shutting the barn door after the horses run. He might say about a situation, well, we shut the barn door and let the horse run into it, or something of that sort. And there is a term for that, and I knew the term and I've forgotten it. Does anybody know what that is? Confusing, like a well-known phrase.
Oh,
Yeah, that could be a malapropism.
That's what they call horseplay.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's a malapropism, but also mixed metaphors are very funny. So like shutting the barn door after, I don't know, I don't know, I can't think of anything right now, but when you take two metaphors and you jam them together, and it makes no sense, but it's very often funny.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do in this book, and he's like at a higher level. So he's just, as he's trying to be officious, he's also making a fool of himself.
I always remember on the old I Love Lucy show when Desi Arnaz said, "Birds of a feather smell the same."
Yeah, that's a mixed metaphor, right, Lee? I mean, taking two and ramming them together and makes it funny. I mean, even if it's not a funny scene, if you need to release the pressure so you can build, say you're writing a crime story or something, you need to build the pressure again, or build sometimes when you're in your your events are building the tension to the end of your book. You sometimes put in a funny phrase or something, just takes the pressure off and allows the reader to go, and then you build the pressure again. So I think it's a really good device.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. It was a wonderful presentation. You made me laugh a lot through it too. It was great.
Thank you.
Well, then we did what we set out to do.
Absolutely. 100%.
Gary?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, it was really great and very well organized too. And
that was me. No, that was Ginger.
I realize that. Yeah, and,
that was Ginger.
But
Ginger made me time out everything so we fit, and we still have 7 minutes, Ginger, so we can ad lib for a while.
Slave driver. I was reminded in traveling around, spending time on the Keys, there's a newspaper down there called the Coconut Telegraph, which is a lot of local news, but they have a section of jokes, and they're not all great, but there are usually at least a few that are worth keeping. And I've collected those over the years. And you can find them online and you can access the back issues. But if you want to add to your collection of humor, and because they're brief, they're easy to remember.
So Bill, maybe we need to start each meeting with a joke.
That's what I was thinking too. Good
I
idea.
like that.
And then there's pen points as far as adding humor.
Yeah, we could add jokes in there too.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, Jimmy Buffett sings about the Coconut Telegraph. I don't know if they got the name from him or he got the name from them.
Right. I know. Yeah.
Or as my one friend calls him, Jimmy Buffet.
So Ginger, did I hear you say that you're moving, or that you have a?
Yes, I think so. I'm a little bit, I was moving and now I'm thinking maybe I'll just keep my place and rent it. But I'm gonna be here less in any case.
And are you gonna be in New York more?
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, basically, and then travel.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And is Eileen moving too? That was the first I
Yes.
heard anything.
Yeah, she's moving imminently, like in 2 days. She sold her house and bought another house in North Carolina.
Moving inland.
Yes.
Have you seen Drunken Shakespeare in New York?
What's that?
Drunken Shakespeare.
Drunken Shakespeare?
Brilliant. It's like a pub type. I don't know if they're still there, but it's like a library when you go in, but you sit above and the actors are below, and the lead has to drink 5 shots of whiskey during the whole play. But they are brilliant. They're so it was so wonderful, and you can eat. You know, you have like a little bar all the way around while you're
It's in the city. It's in New York City.
It's in New York. I'm trying to remember where it's on the west side somewhere.
Okay.
I'll find out if it's still. Somebody told me it was. One person told me it had closed, but that was probably during COVID. And somebody told me it had reopened again. But it's really worth seeing if you get, if you spend more time there.
Well, I'm not actually going to New York City, but if I ever do go there, I will look that up.
Are you going up? Well, you're going. Well, New York's big, of course.
I'm going to repopulate the town. They had 600 people, and when I moved away, they went down to 599. So now we're going back up to 600.
Ginny talking about Drunken Shakespeare remind me of a book I read, and I have tried to buy this book. I've never been able to find it again. But basically, it was the 100 greatest works of literature reduced down to 1 or 2 sentences. And the only one I remember is Moby Dick. And the sentence was, "No one was left but Ish and the fish." But it was like 100 of these, and I can't remember. And I've tried to find the book since then. And if you ever find it, let me know. Lee, you were going to say something?
Yeah. Speaking of Shakespeare, and then what you said, at the Venice Theater, they're doing the complete works of Shakespeare in like an hour and a half. And it's, I'm seeing it in a week from Friday, but it's supposed to be hysterical. So if you get a chance, you might want to go see it.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I wonder who's in it, because I did take an acting class with a teacher from there, from one of the local universities, and he was he did it in one of the back theatres for Sarasota. I think Sarasota Theatre, there's something behind. And they're brilliant if you get a chance. They did Shakespeare, but there was one writer that wrote it. And they're just so like smooth and It's just great.
Mm.
Yeah.
I don't
This
know
is
if you-
supposed to be
you all-
funny, and it's three women that do it. They
Oh,
do the complete works of Shakespeare.
wow.
Wow.
Great.
I'd like to
I
see
know
that. So
you
you said the
all-
Lee? No, can I ask? Lee, you said Venice Theater?
Yeah, the Venice Theater.
Okay, and also Lee, who was the author on Rubber Dub Dub? Because I wanted to take a look at that too.
Hamilton Ball, M-A-U-L-E.
I'm sorry, Hamilton?
Hamilton Ball, M-A-U-L-E.
Got it. Thank you.
And Heather put something in the chat, because I know not everybody is looking at the chat, that if anyone fancies writing one-liners, you can submit them to thecomedycrowd.com and get paid for them. This month's theme is stranded.
Thanks for that information.
Eric?
Just because writing humor is somewhat difficult for most people. I know years ago, there was actually a comedy writing group in Northport. And just about the time I was looking to join the group, they folded. And but there were professional writers of comedy in this group. And it looked really interesting. And I've always thought it would be nice to actually have a group of comedy writers, because it's just a lot to writing humor.
Yeah. Well, now that the Screen Guild, the screenwriters are on strike, or the Writers Guild of America, I guess, are on strike, they might be willing to do some teaching of courses while they're.
Oh, there's a program. Gloria, can you sign them up?
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
All right, back to
Good
you. Back to
program,
you,
guys.
Bill.
Yeah, great programs. That's you guys did a wonderful job. I'm wondering though, Bob, what kind of flash fiction did you get from the high school students? Was it funny at all, or?
They all read them. I gotta tell you, there was one that was funny. It was about, I showed the picture, Ed will remember, of the car upside down. I had them use that as a prompt. And one was funny, but nothing stuck in my mind. You know, they just wrote it in their notebooks and then read it. So I didn't collect them or anything.
Well, great program, guys. You did a really good job, and it's very funny and kept us all entertained. Well done.
Thank you. Well, we were happy to do it. Gave us a chance to work together on a project. We've got a lot of projects we're working together on.
Yes, we do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for all of your projects. You guys have been great.
Oh, well, don't forget to volunteer for the become webmaster. Anybody who always dreamed of being a master, which I understand you're not supposed to use that word anymore. I'm actually just writing a piece for a magazine in Germany about all the words you're not allowed to use in the US anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Should be a long.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a long piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know about Welsh on a bed? I only
Welsh
found it
on a
out
bed.
today, and I am Welsh.
Yeah.
The Welsh on a bet comes from the original belief.
Oh,
that
to
Welsh
Welsh
people-
on a bet. Yes.
Yeah, it comes from the belief. Comes from the belief at the time that Welsh people were all criminals.
Oh, jeez.
Apparently, it's not good to use that anymore. But Wales, we still use it.
Well, yeah, I mean these stereotypes, and I mean, like Scottish people are known for being tight with their money, or Irish people are known
Yeah.
for drinking, and
How do you get copper wire? You get two Scotsmen to fight over a penny.
Those are very, I mean, when you think about it, if you look at, they say the true the true Englishman is a Celt. Because when William the Conqueror landed, they all fled to the west coast.
Yeah, we're the originals, the Celts. Yeah.
My brother lives on the border of Wales.
Who
In
does?
You know, Heather, we call them Celts.
Yeah. Oh, Celts, yeah. I see
Right,
what you mean.
Like
right.
the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
One thing I was just thinking of, we just lost Ed Corin, who lives here in Brookfield, Vermont. He was the New Yorker cartoonist. And we also get Harry Bliss in in one particular newspaper that is a weekly here. And I'm thinking that reading these cartoonists can be very helpful in getting our inspiration going. So I just thought of throwing that in.
Yeah, or just writing captions for the cartoons in like the New Yorker. That is so difficult, and it's so much fun to read them when they publish them.
Mhm.
Kind of a lost art these days, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Losing our editorial cartoonists in newspapers too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that brings the program to an end. Thank you very much. You guys did a great job, and I'm going to get a book of jokes, and we'll open every meeting with a new joke. All right.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you, Bill.
All
Bye,
right, take care,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank
Everybody.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.